everyone and welcome back to my booktube channel, Lisa in Bookland. This is a video in honour of People April, which is being held by Roz from Scally-Dandling About the Books and Elizabeth from Book Hands on Books. I am participating in People April. I didn't make a full TBR because I am only reading one or two books. So I do read non-fiction, including biographies a little bit shorter than fiction books. However, it is a readathon that I wish I had more time for, and it got me thinking, I suppose, so about what biographies and letters I did already have on my TBR, and yeah, I just said I'd use it as an excuse to dig out all of the biographies I have. Just said I'd go through them. So first of all, my reading plans for People April. So I'm actually in the middle of a book at the moment. It's one that I bought in London and I just couldn't leave behind me, and it is Snow Widows, Scott's Fatal Antarctic Expedition by the Women Left Behind by Katherine MacInnes. If that's how she pronounces it, but I'm really enjoying this so far. So I love a good exploration story, as you know, and as you'll be able to tell from other books that are on this list. But I wouldn't say that Antarctic exploration is something I've read an awful lot about. Obviously, I know about Scott, and I've read Tom Crean's biography and really liked it. So, but this is just a bit different, I suppose, in that it's told through the eyes of the women, and the start was so promising. It was showing them in the build up to, I suppose, the news being received that Scott's party that was making the attempt for the South Pole had actually all very sadly died, but it obviously didn't get to that point, so I suppose it really whetted your appetite. But then it like whisked you back to 1910. It was a bit confusing at the start because, you know, you're bouncing between these five women. I had to write them down at the start, who was who and what were they doing. But yeah, just really enjoying it. Really interesting. I suppose 5-way biography, and yeah, delighted to be participating in People April with this one. I suppose in terms of other plans, then I am hoping to read. Hopefully this won't be too optimistic now, as I usually am with readathon TBRs, but I'm hoping to read 2 other books, both kind of more longer term TBR things. So I actually, this first one I did read a bit of it. So in 2012, I think, the first time I went to London, I went with my friend to the Imperial War Museum, and I picked up this book, Love Tommy, Letters Home from the Great War to the Present Day, and I think I did read it at the time, but I can't really remember it very well, so I'd like to return to this book. And I suppose it's not really a biography, but one of the things that People April, you can read letters as well. I assume this counts, even though I think it was more intended as like letters from one person. This is obviously letters from loads of people, but yeah, and they are all named. Which is one of the criteria. So yeah, I just thought that'd be interesting. The last letters from 2004, so more modern conflicts. So yeah, I think letters are nice fast reads anyways, and yeah, just like to return to it. And finally, a long-term one, very different. You'll notice there's a very strong historical theme throughout all of these books, but I did get gifted some books when I was younger that I haven't read yet. My mum is a big animal lover, so she bought me this book ages ago, Trading Paces by Michael Kelly. Yes, so he used to work in the IT industry, and he gave it up and moved to the country and started working like freelance for the Irish Times. That's obviously way more applicable to me now than when I was in school or whenever I bought this. So yeah, I suppose this is before working from home. Now you could work in the IT and live on a farm. I don't work in IT, I work in engineering type job, but now you can do both. Their careers as corporate drones abandoned. Oh dear. Hopefully not as bad as this fellow that's going to have a life crisis and abandon it, right? I rarely read biographies. I don't think I've ever read one that I didn't like. Obviously, people that you're more interested in, you'll enjoy them more, but you're never going to pick out a book that you're not interested in anyways, even though my same mother, I remember the first biography I ever read was an autobiography, and there's this Irish singer called Deirdre le Faye, and my mum, as I said, does not read, so she picked out some unusual books for me to read when I was younger. But I remember she bought me an autobiography of Deirdre le Fay's mother, who had like lots of kids and lived in Donegal in what would have been like 1910s, 1920s, and I enjoyed that book. So like, I suppose, you know, it's just, if the book is well written and anybody's life is half interesting, you'll enjoy reading it. So yeah, I said I'd just run through the biographies that I have on my shelves and the letters I have on my shelves, and that I don't think I'll get to this April, just to remind myself, and so you can tell me if there's any that I should prioritise if you've read them. So there are actually a good few naval biographies. I'll leave those till the end in case people aren't interested, because I know I must be dreadfully boring. So yeah, the other ones are kind of random. So the first one is the only other category I have, I suppose, and that is the Brontës. I actually am kind of currently reading this one, which is the massive The Brontës by Juliet Barker. But when I was making this video, I actually changed my mind and think I should stop reading this one and start actually with this one, at Western Winds, The Brontës Irish Heritage by Edward Chitham. Yeah, Edward Chitham. Just for the very plain reason that it's shorter. You know, I think it might be less intimidating than the like 1,000-page Juliet Barker biography. As much as I was enjoying that one, the chapter I'd read, it is a really big commitment. So yeah, this might get me started. And the Brontës' Irish heritage is obviously interesting to me. Their father was born in Ireland, up the north. He moved to England to go to school and to go to college, and all of the sisters and Branwell were born there. And he even changed his name to they were originally called the Brontës, but Bronte sounded too Irish, so he changed his name to Bronte, which sounds more sophisticated. But yes, just within the first chapter of this, I found out an interesting fact that Patrick Bronte's brother was actually involved in the United Irishmen movement. So yeah, I'm just interested to see how much of the Irish heritage this book would be able to pull out, because this book said that there actually wasn't an awful lot known about Patrick Bronte's early life. So yeah, the two of these together are on my TBR. So let's stick with writers, I suppose. The next book I bought when that film about Tolkien came out a few years ago, and I still haven't seen it. I really want to, but I'll probably read this book first. I actually bought this book in Oxford the whole day I was there, that I wasn't sick as a dog. But yeah, Tolkien obviously had such an interesting life, being an author, knowing so many other authors in Oxford. He fought in the First World War, and yeah, I expect this just to be a really moving biography and really interesting. So yeah, he seems like he had some life, and just some books he managed to write after that. So yeah, very intelligent man, and can't wait to find out more about him. The only other collection of letters I have, actually, apart from that Imperial War Museum one, is these ones, Jane Austen's letters, which I just got recently. I have a smaller collection of her letters. It's beautifully illustrated, but I never had like the full edition with like the notes and everything. And yeah, I just obviously this won't be done on a day, but it's been a massive book. But I do think I am going to read some of this in Jane Austen July. So this is the one that I do have plans to read. I've read Jane Austen biographies, two of them, and one of them, Lucy Worsley, was one more than once. So yeah, I feel more ready to able to tackle the letters now. The next book I'm going to talk about is another kind of long-term TBR veteran, another gift I got a while ago, and that is The World According to Bob by James Bowen. This book, I believe, is quite famous, or at least the first one is. This is actually a sequel, which is probably part of the reason I haven't read it yet, but I think I can just dive in. So the first book was called A Street Cat Named Bob. So I believe James Bowen was homeless. He had a drug addiction problem, and he rescued this cat called Bob, who ended up changing his life. And yeah, this is just his continued adventures, and it does look like it'll be a nice fast read. And yeah, who doesn't love a heartwarming story about a cat? So yeah, hopefully I'll get to this one as well in the near future. So the next one is quite niche, but it is this book, True Great, The Making of a Legend by Sylvie Linan with Liam Hayes. I picked this up a few years ago. I think it was probably around 2017 when Galway won the Hurling All-Ireland. The GAA, the Gaelic Athletics Association, are our national games, and the two main ones are football and hurling, and every county has a team, and the inter-county competition is a major deal. I was in Croke Park that day in 2017 when Galway won the All-Ireland after 29 years. So yeah, Sylvie Linan was one of the last people that won it. It's just a sporting autobiography. I have read plenty before. I suppose like successful sports people. I'm not a sporty person at all to actually play, but I do like to watch it. I suppose just what drives people to be that successful in what is an amateur sport. I'm just always overwhelmed by their dedication. So yeah, this will be like a player from the past. I've never read a player that I suppose wasn't playing in my time. Maybe during the summer when the GA season is more into the swing of it, I'll pick up this. So with that, let's get into the more familiar territory of historical biographies. And the first one, I was actually really tempted to pick this up this People April. So I read Alice Loxton's book about Georgian caricatures, and one of the people that was caricatured very extensively in the Georgian period was Georgiana, the Duchess of Devonshire. I have not seen the film about her. I really would like to as well, but I do know the basic bones of her story. So her maiden name was Georgiana Spencer, and I believe Princess Diana is like a direct descendant of her. She was married when she was very young to the Duke of Devonshire. I don't think her marriage is particularly happy. I think there was a bit of a menage a trois going on with her friend, but she did become very involved in like political campaigning for like the Whig parties and Charles Fox. And she was very, very influential as like a political hostess and had many scandals. I believe she was really into gambling, and yeah, I just think it would be such an interesting biography. However, I do wish I had held out for the illustrated edition, because I think there is a book called Georgiana's World, which is this but with loads more pictures in. So I might get that out from the library when I'm reading this. I know I read Beloved Emma last year, which is set in kind of the same period, and there was so many paintings referred to, and I just had I thought the experience would have been so much more enhanced if I was looking at the pictures and the text as well in full colour. So yeah, I might do that, but yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. I was tempted, but it's yeah, it's quite big, and I just felt like I should spread my reading, seeing as I'd been so more immersed in the Georgians from reading Uproar. Yeah, I said I'd leave this for a while and spread them out. So roughly the same period, but a different person, obviously, is a recent acquisition of mine, The Great Leviathan, The Life of How Peter Brown, 2nd Marquess of Sligo, 1788 to 1845. So I kind of talked about this in my vlog as well, but I picked this up. I was very excited to pick this up because I had heard stories about this man in my visit to Westport House. But yeah, he started off being like a Regency book, living the high life in London. A fortune all came from slave plantations in Jamaica. So yeah, he actually then ended up going out to Jamaica. Was horrified at the treatment of the slaves and actually became involved in the abolition movement. Down in Jamaica was eventually called Sligoville, kind of in his honour. So yeah, I just thought he had such an interesting life story, and some things he did were absolutely mad. So he actually almost ended up being executed for treason, and was saved in a very, very strange way. So yeah, just really, really interesting, and definitely go to Westport House and hear his story from the tour guides if you can. So yeah, with that, we're on to the naval biographies. So I'll race through these. The earliest one is probably this one. So Gale Force 10 by Nicholas Courtney, which is the life and legacy of Admiral Beaufort. So the only thing I know about him is obviously he's responsible for developing the Beaufort scale to measure wind speed. So yeah, it said he was involved in scientific and antiquarian discovery to polar exploration, meteorology, astronomy, cryptography, and literature. I'd be kind of really fascinated just like how scientific things were for naval officers back at that time, and probably still now, I don't know, but yeah, I thought this would be an interesting little one. I remember picking this up in Falmouth when I was over in Cornwall last year. So speaking of one naval biography that I feel like I really should have read by now, because I'm such a big fan of the Aubrey Maturin series, is this one, Cochrane the Dauntless, The Life and Adventures of Thomas Cochrane by David Cordingley. So it's kind of widely acknowledged, I suppose, that Captain Aubrey in the Aubrey Maturin novels is based on this character who just yeah, is very larger than life, had some of the same flashy adventures that Captain Aubrey does, and yeah, I just think it'll be really fun to read this and see where like the similarities and differences are between Aubrey and his real life inspiration. And this painting of him always makes me laugh. Like, how long are his legs? He's the longest legs ever. So yeah, I'll have to get to that one as well. A flawed romantic hero who helped define the age. And it also says his impulsive nature meant he was often his own worst enemy. That's definitely Jack Aubrey. So next up, another man that ended up the other side of the Atlantic is this Admiral William Brown, Liberation of the South Atlantic by Marcus Aquinas, translated by Bill Tyson. So this is a fellow I don't know a lot about at all. As far as I know, I think he was an Irish boy who entered the British Navy and then actually ran away. He ended up becoming involved in, I think it's Argentina again. I hope I'm not saying complete nonsense here. But yes, it says on 15th March 1814, South America's future hung in the balance as Brown led a rebel fleet into battle against the Spanish Royal Navy. His ship holed 80 times, a quarter of his men dead or wounded. Brown ordered his piper to play St. Patrick's Day in the morning as he led a final desperate assault. And I believe he is quite a famous Irishman, so it'll be nice to know more about him. And yeah, I won't make as many mistakes next time when I'm telling you about him. We'll see. The last two books I'm going to talk about, I suppose, are kind of combined biographies again, kind of like Snow Widows, but this one is called Barrow's Boys, The Original Extreme Adventures. I love, as I mentioned, I love an exploration story, probably because I'm not very adventurous at all in real life, so I like to read about other people's adventures. But yeah, it says here, in 1816, John Barrow, second secretary to the British Admiralty, launched the most ambitious exploration programme the world has ever seen. So yeah, he'd have just been one of the decision makers who got all these expeditions funding. He was responsible for sending out, you know, the many of the expeditions, including the Franklin expedition to the Northwest Passage. And yeah, it was just such a time of, I don't know, bravery. I can't imagine just when there had been expeditions that failed and people all died before, I'd be like, yeah, I'll lead that expedition. Sounds like a great idea, just searching for glory, madness. But this isn't just about naval exploration. It says that they charted enormous areas of the Arctic. They struggled across the Sahara to find Timbuktu and the mouth of the Niger. They discovered the North Magnetic Pole and were the first humans to see Antarctica's volcanoes. So yeah, I just think it'd be really interesting. Finally, this is one I just saw in a secondhand bookshop one time and I just had to pick it up. And that's Men of War, Courage Under Fire in the 19th Century Navy by David Crane. So I think that it focuses on three officers. The first is involved in the Battle of Trafalgar, and the second is involved in the Crimean Wars, and then the third is kind of later on in the late Victorian period. So yeah, just I think it's just a triple biography looking at, I suppose, how their lives went. Yes, I don't really know any more about it, but yeah, I'll add it to the stack of books I have to read. So that's just a tour of the biographies that are on my shelf at the minute and the letters. Please let me know what you're reading for People April. I'm glad to know now I suppose how many biographies I already have, because I definitely won't buy out any more unless I'm very tempted. So yeah, thanks for listening, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next Thursday for my next video.